Hello, everyone, and welcome to this program. My name is Lisa Levinson. I'll be your host for tonight, and I work for In Defense of Animals. This is our special privilege to put together the Sustainable Activism webinar for everyone, for activists, vegans, and other folks who care about animals. And the intention is to offer resources for animal activists so that we can continue helping animals for the long haul, that we don't suffer from burnout, and that we feel good and thrive and really enjoy our lives. So today, I'm really excited to bring out Alexa Verink, and she's going to be our featured speaker. She's a vegan wellness coach. I'll tell you a little bit more about her in just a moment. Also wanted to let you know that if you do need support as an activist, we do have an ongoing support as part of our animal activists. We have a support line, and you can call that line. It's 800-705-0425 and get free counseling and resources and tips of all kinds. So just want to let you know that we're here for you. So now I get to introduce Miss Alexa. Alexa is a vegan wellness coach. She's focused on showing the on-the-go vegans and activists how to develop and maintain healthy habits wherever they wander. She grew up an athlete, riding horses and playing volleyball, and adopted veganism in 2016. A career in sales and marketing took her all over the country, even making road trips between places like Seattle and North Florida, back and forth. Now she resides in St. Augustine, Florida, and helps her clients and a team of coaches become more vibrant versions of themselves through mindfulness, intuitive plant-based eating, and high-intensity workouts. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Alexa, who's going to share some great tips so that we can be fit and thrive in the new year. So our New Year's resolutions. Hey, Alexa, how you doing?
Hello, thank you for that intro, Lisa. That was perfect. Make it sound good.
Well, it's my pleasure. My pleasure, of course.
Awesome. Okay, so I will share my screen real quick. Bear with me here, so that you guys have more to look at than just my face.
Which is lovely, by the way.
Okay, can you see my screen yet, or just give me
Yes.
a Okay.
Yes. So can you
Awesome.
put it on full screen so we can see a little bit more?
Ooh, I'm not sure that
Oh,
I
oh,
can
okay.
in this exact thing. Here, wait, I can.
Maybe where it says 50% down in the lower right.
Yeah, I think it'll just make it bigger in this window.
Okay.
Can you read it okay though?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's mostly so that I stay on task and don't ramble. So
Okay.
there won't be too much anyone needs to like take notes on or anything like that. Okay, but as Lisa said, we are going to talk about basically, I know this says fitness, but I'm going to talk about kind of a holistic wellness approach to how to be your best self, why we want to do that, and how that helps with animal activism. So Lisa gave an amazing intro to me, so of what I do now. I thought it would be helpful to kind of give a background on my vegan transition and also how that influenced my career because, sometimes you kind of see your personal life and your career as separate, but I think going vegan had a big piece in what I'm doing now today. So, and I personally love hearing people's like how I went vegan stories. I ask everyone I meet. So I figured I would share that too, hoping that someone else wants to hear that as well. So my vegan transition took a full 8 years, and I like to point that out because sometimes I think we kind of get in a like vegan bubble, especially being surrounded by lots of vegans, and kind of forget the whole transition and the whole spectrum of, what it took you to get there. And that allows you to empathize with where people are at, meet them where they're at, and just help them to get better every day. And that's what I'm trying to do through my job as a coach now. So I grew up in the Midwest on a farm, and so I was I had contact with animals from a very young age. And honestly, I just kind of started to not like meat very much anymore. And so I kind of cut that out. And I think there was just, something wasn't meeting up when I was, outside taking care of my horses and then would be having like meat on the plate at dinner. So started to cut that out. My vegetarian transition took about a full 2 years to finally like cut everything out. And I kind of coasted that way for a while and just kind of had the idea in the back of my head, like, wow, I still don't feel great eating dairy. And I was eating just like a lot of bread and dairy. I feel like that's what, especially if you're going out, that's easy to do as a vegetarian. Those are usually the options available to you at any given restaurant. And then I saw Cowspiracy, like Lisa said, in 2016 and went vegan the next day. And I hear that from so many people, especially some of my clients who come to me because they're interested in veganism and maybe find it overwhelming and really like they saw a documentary and were like, okay, I get it. This is real. Like I can't ignore it anymore, but like, how do I do this? So for me, it was Cowspiracy. That's all it took. I really haven't seen any documentaries, any vegan documentaries since then because I was convinced and went with it. And I wrote in here that it was while I was living in central Pennsylvania, which I feel like is significant because it is not a vegan friendly area at all. And so I think a lot of people kind of feel alone when they're in those areas where there really are not a lot of vegans or vegan mentors, anyone that they can either confide in or look up to kind of understand the lifestyle. So that's why I think things like this, anything online communities are amazing. I had thankfully one vegan friend at work who still works with me today through coaching, which is awesome. So I just think that community piece is so key, especially when you're in an area like that. And then just to note that in the last year and a half-ish, I've been focused on more whole food plant-based, which is, you'll see WFPB throughout the presentation a little bit. That's what that stands for if you're not familiar. So that is just focusing on, the most whole food form of anything, lots of, raw or slightly cooked like veggies and lots of fruits and grains, legumes, all that good stuff. And so to speak to my career as well, Lisa had said, I was in sales and marketing. I had studied international business and marketing, so totally went with what I studied, which was great. And did get to travel internationally, which I think kind of opens you up to other cultures and other way you see the way other cultures eat. The first time I studied abroad in Argentina, and I had been vegetarian and kind of, I've heard of like travel vegans or travel vegetarians, and I kind of gave it up and was like, oh, it's the land of beef. I won't be able to eat vegetarian in Argentina. Not the case at all. So I think being open to other cultures and just what other people are doing and eating kind of shows you how easy it really can be. So that was a big eye opener for me. So then continued after college to go right into the corporate world and went into sales and marketing. And there are great things about sales and marketing. So glad I did it. I learned a lot. But I had, I was helping companies that promote non-vegan foods, not the best practices. So as you can imagine, there was a major dissonance in what I was promoting at work and what my own personal values were. And that is, so, it's like I was at work 8 hours a day helping a company to sell, frozen meat on Amazon and like feeling terrible about it, which is what led me to really seek an online community of people like me that understood kind of how being in society, a non-vegan society for the majority's part, can be really tough on your psyche and your own mental wellness. And so by seeking that community, I was able to find the people, the wonderful women that I work with now. I work with a whole team of plant-based coaches, and I found that by seeking out that community online. And so that has led me to where I am now. And I went full-time as a health coach, was able to quit my corporate job and not support the selling of animal products anymore. And so now I get to do awesome things like talk to you guys today, which is so fun. So right now, Lisa kind of mentioned, I focus on usually super busy vegans or people who are curious about veganism or even being vegetarian, just upping their plant intake in any way to feel better and be the best version of themselves on a daily basis. Okay, so into the bulk of what we're going to talk about. I thought it would be good to start with, I always give my clients like little homework to make them really focus on themselves and get the most out of, what they're getting from me, not just like, oh, go do your workouts, but, really think about, why do you want to focus on your health? And it shouldn't be just because you're supposed to, because I think that's not a good reason. If you feel forced into being a healthier person, that's not going to keep you on track. So my little activity, and you don't necessarily have to do this now if you're watching, but this is a good thing you can do right after the webinar pretty quickly, I would hope, is just write out a few of these things, like, what are you passionate about? So I have my examples down here. For me, it is whole food, plant-based cooking, travel, constantly learning, and horse rescues. Like I said, I grew up on a farm. Horses are my thing. So that's usually kind of my giving back to the animal community. Who do you care about? For me, my boyfriend, my parents, my friends, list them out specifically and really picture those people in your mind and why they're important to you. And what do you want to accomplish in this life? For a lot of you, you are working towards building this movement and really getting a message across. And that's amazing work. Like, that's fantastic. And that should make you want to be around as long as possible, right? So are you going to be able to show up for those things and those people in the biggest and best way if you're abusing your own body? Probably not, right? So that is what you need to think of before you even consider, like, oh, I should work out more, or oh, I should eat better. It's the foundation of everything that you want to do is really based on that why, and like who you're trying to show up for and what your main goals in life are, and to be around for as long as possible and to accomplish those things and be there for those people. So I actually saw this quote, I think on the vegan spirituality page pretty recently. And I was just kind of scrolling through to see what gets talked about, if there were any questions on the page and what people were chatting about. And this quote stood out to me because I was like, oh, that's so perfect. It ties everything together that I want to talk about. And so from Dr. Jane Goodall, she said, rather than becoming discouraged and rendered helpless by the ignorance and evil that is so obvious, we shall become strengthened by the goodness and love that is also everywhere. And then we shall be able to use the gift of our lives to make the world that little bit better every day. So that's what I was trying to say in the slide before this, is you want to be around as long as possible and really take as much goodness as you can and give that out to the world and be present to be able to do that. So that is why no matter what your goals are, who's important to you, like whatever those specific things are, the reason why you should be focusing on your health is all for that. And you need to be thinking of that as you go into these more specific tactics that I will talk about now. So through the coaching that I do, I know a lot of people focus so much on working out or like eating better, either one or the other, kind of trying to do both or balancing it and getting overwhelmed. And I really try to focus on the mindset and the mindfulness around it, and then kind of leading into these things. So I really won't focus a ton on physical fitness, a little more on nutrition, but it's really going to be all about mindset. And I think the rest comes a lot easier. So these are just some quick tips on, if you're approaching kind of working out maybe for the first time, or if you are super busy and haven't been fitting it in, maybe something you're returning back to. For me, I have done all kinds of things. Like you heard, I was an athlete growing up. So I pretty much was just given my workouts. I was playing sports all the time. I didn't really have to think about it. And then once I stopped playing volleyball year round, I kind of had to figure out how to take care of myself again. And then of course, as I aged and got further into adulthood, I had to figure out how to balance that with a very busy schedule and trying to do a couple of jobs at a time and things like that. So these are my tips to you, especially if you're traveling constantly or maybe in different locations where you can't go to, the gym that's near your apartment or your house. What I suggest is you really first, if you're trying to get back into working out, is experiment and find out what you really like doing, because no one's going to, say you suck at sports and you decide to like join a soccer team as your way of working out. Like, you're probably not going to enjoy it. So try different things out. Do try different things out. I know it can be kind of intimidating, but see what you really like doing. And then speaking to in your physical, get in your zone physically, like where is that for you? Do you feel best in a gym with other people working out around you? maybe some sort of yoga or bar or Pilates studio, maybe outside. A lot of people feel a lot better being connected to nature and working out outside, or it could be at home. For me, I was a gym rat for years and years and years, and then I realized I was not motivated to go to the gym because no one was really checking on me at the gym, and it was kind of a far walk. So I switched to at-home workouts, and that has been great for me because I can just be like, oh, I have 30 minutes. I can go throw on some leggings, do a workout in some ridiculous outfit in my living room, and I'm done and I feel better. And then finally, find a plan that goes with your lifestyle. So I know for activists, there is a lot of traveling, going to different places. If you are super active, that might be, air travel, going to different states, different countries. So that can be hard. If you just join a gym, you can't go to that gym when you're traveling. So find something that really goes with you. And that's, same as if you decide there's some studio you really love and that's near your house and you're going to go all the time, then great. So really think about what's going to fit in with your lifestyle, not what you think you should do or someone tells you you should do. This should really be all about you, making you the best person that you can be and really fitting in with your lifestyle and making you happier. It shouldn't be a punishment. This should be something you get to do because your body works for you, and doing all these things will make you feel better and show up as a happier, better person. Okay. Now this is one of my favorites. And of course it's a rainbow on it, which means it should be everyone's favorite because that's fun, right? So plant-based nutrition. I know that a lot of people, especially I don't want to discriminate against new vegans because that's fantastic. I love that. But it's like some people think like, oh, I went vegan, I'm healthy. And I think a lot of us are aware that just because food is vegan nowadays doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. There are so many, thankfully, we have this problem where there's so many options and alternatives to animal-based, animal products that we used to love, and now we're vegan and we try to have that like vegan bacon or vegan cheese, vegan pizza, and those aren't necessarily the healthiest things for us. So what I'm trying to tell you guys to do, if you are on that kind of junk food vegan train, is to think like, become a freaking rainbow. Like that's how I like to approach eating, because it's not, again, you don't want to be punishing yourself like, oh, I ate so poorly, like now I have to eat all these like boring raw veggies with nothing on them, and like that's what I deserve because I screwed up. Like what you should be thinking is every single day, every single meal or snack, you have this choice to choose like the most vibrant, beautiful, amazing foods that are going to make you just like glow inside and out. So one of the courses, there's actually a nutrition course that I offer to clients, and the tagline for it, which is kind of my next tip on nutrition, is water first. So I think a lot of people think they're hungry and they're actually thirsty. So always do water first. I always have a water bottle with me. And I have on here, always carry a heavily stickered water bottle with you. I think that is kind of an opportunity not only to stay hydrated all the time, but it can be a big conversation piece. So I think as activists, you want to be getting a message out at all times. Why not put a bunch of vegan stickers on a water bottle and have that as another like way to spread the message with you, and also like be really healthy for yourself. And then veggies most. So always make your first kind of choice of what you're going to go for, if it's a snack or the base of all your meals, veggies, and you're just going to feel much better all around. Of course, you kind of pile on after that, but just always think water first. So stay super hydrated, make sure you're actually hungry when you go to eat, and veggies most. And then the next thing, which I will admit takes some practice, this has taken me a lot of time, but listen to your body, like your whole body, not just your eyes or your brain or your tongue alone. Because I know, especially if you're already in a restaurant and something smells good, or you're at some place and they like surprise have vegan cupcakes, it can be, your brain instantly lights up and is like, oh, that's awesome, that's so exciting, I need that, or like I have to have that. But if you really check in with yourself, and I think actually physically closing your eyes is very helpful to do this. Close your eyes, listen to what your body's really saying to you. So again, you kind of go back to the like, am I actually thirsty? Like if I not have water all day or for a few hours, and that's why I'm like jumping on this kind of junky food. Would I actually feel much better if I had a big, like huge variety of veggies and a big salad with some great stuff in it? Or do I need something heartier? Like, have I really not eaten, very much food today at all? And like, I kind of need more of those like grains and things that'll stick to you a little longer. And the other thing I wanted to note on here was to take note of portions. This was something that when I started coaching and got into the nutrition programs that I have to offer clients, I realized I was eating a lot of good things, but kind of in like skewed portions. Like, I know a lot of people that I know personally that are vegans are like all about avocados. I think actually everyone's about avocados. If you're not, I'm confused. But I was having like a full avocado a day, not necessarily as much healthy fat as you need in a day. So I've toned back a little bit on that, and I just tried to provide for you here on the slide, which I'll read this out loud because I know some people are on the phone. But take note of your portions. So for fruits and veggies, a portion should be a cup, and think like the most portions of food you should be getting a day, you should be getting the most of fruits and veggies. So it's not like your salad should only be 1 cup, but a portion size of veggies is a cup. So if you're having a salad, it can be 2 or 3 portions of veggies, and that makes up maybe the 6 or 8 portions of veggies you should have in a day, just to clarify. For protein, so think your beans, your tofu, your tempeh, that should be 3/4 of a cup. Grains and starches, so that includes potatoes, about 1/2 cup. And then healthy fats, like I mentioned, avocados, about 1/3 of a cup. And then if you get into seeds and oils, that's 2 tablespoons. And the other thing I wanted to speak to on nutrition, because I think for a lot of people, but I also think for activists, you kind of have emotional eating come into play, because I know Lisa mentioned there can be burnout, a lot of emotional burnout from just what you're experiencing. And for many people, you turn to the comfort of food. And that's where I think these little tips and tricks come into play, of really listening to your body, knowing that you should go to water first, veggies the most out of your whole diet, and going to that as your, kind of second line, so to speak, of like defense against emotional eating. And what else do I want to speak to on that? Oh, the other thing specifically to emotional eating is it'll take time. I promise this is like not the easiest switch. So do not beat yourself up if you're trying to get away from an emotional eating habit, and it's hard, because it is to try and find things that comfort you, but in a more productive way. So for times that maybe you come back from a protest or a vigil or something like that, and you're just completely emotionally drained, and maybe that's when you go to throw the vegan pizza in the oven, or like go nuts on some chips and guac or something like that, maybe that's the time you need to make a cup of tea and take a long hot bath and listen to some music you really love, or light a candle that has a scent that makes you feel good, or write in your journal about how you feel and kind of release that way, instead of stuffing your emotions down by eating as much as possible and distracting away from what you're really feeling. That got kind of deep, but we'll bring it back up a little bit, and I will talk about some other, good resources here. So last thing on nutrition, I wanted to give an example of, a good mix of getting all the nutrients you need. This is kind of my go-to meal, and I just call it a garbage salad. And this is really great for clearing out your fridge. Personally, this is kind of what I do at the end of the week, even more than at the beginning of the week. But so this garbage salad, if you can't see it, is a combination of any raw veggies that I have. So like the more, the better. Sometimes I think lettuce is honestly like the minority part of my salads. And this is coming from a former salad hater. That's what I like to say, is I used to think salads were boring and no fun at all. And like, I didn't want to have them ever. And once I started just like piling all this stuff in there, now I look forward to them. So any raw veggies, cooked veggies also, if they're already made or if they're easy to whip up. Grains, so, the least processed possible, really good, like I think long grain brown rice is probably your best bet. And then some kind of protein is best if you have beans or tempeh, marinated tofu. A healthy fat, I usually include about 1/4 of an avocado on a salad. fermented foods, which I don't think really get called out as much as they should. These are really good for your gut health. So I try and always have sauerkraut in my fridge. And this just needs to be like a little, kind of like a garnish. You don't need like a pile of sauerkraut to make your stomach happy. Just including some little fermented foods here and there is great. And then a whole food plant-based dressing. So there are tons of amazing vegan dressings out there. I'm trying to think of some. I'm not good with brands because honestly, I make most of my dressings, but I know there are lots of great vegan dressings out there that can replace some of your old favorites, maybe a Thousand Island or a ranch. I personally like to try and make a dressing at the beginning of the week to have in the fridge, and then that makes it more likely I'll have these salads with all of these nutrients packed in them. Okay, so this is just one slide, but this is what I really like talking about, which is mindset and community. So we got into the mindset a little bit at the beginning. Mental wellness is just such a huge piece of wanting to take care of yourself. Like I said, you can't just force yourself to do something good for yourself if you don't have a good reason to do it, like within you. I'm sure your doctor telling you maybe you need to work out a little bit more is like a reason, but it's not a strong one if you don't really believe it yourself. So find your good reason and do these other things that I'll speak to really take care of yourself mentally, to want to keep on with these good habits. And this also speaks to kind of the burnout that we want to avoid as well. So these things have worked really well for me. I'm sure there are plenty of others, but I personally like to practice gratitude daily. I actually start my day this way. I write down, I like the number 11, so I write down 11 things that I'm grateful for every single morning, and that has changed my life, honestly. This is something I kind of picked up in the last few months, and it's just made me a happier person overall. Meditation, even if it's for a few minutes a day. I know some people think like, I don't have time or I don't know how, and it's another one of those kind of intimidating practices, but even just checking in with yourself, closing your eyes, focusing on your breath for 2 to 3 minutes a day can help you so much. Cleansing your news feeds. I think this is huge for this community because there are many types of vegans out there, and of course everyone's trying to spread a message in different ways, but if you already know what is true to you and you don't need to see a certain message over and over again and it's not making you feel better, you shouldn't have to be seeing that every day. So for me, it's like I'm vegan, I'm doing the best I can to impact the planet in the least way and harm as few animals as possible. So I personally don't like to subscribe to seeing a lot of graphic content on my news feeds. I want things that are uplifting, and that makes me feel better. So I think if you're getting really sucked down into, seeing all that graphic content or just hearing, I think personally the news like brings us down a lot, or just hearing about how things aren't working or something didn't go well, like if you can't fix it, then there's no point in dwelling on it. If there's nothing you can do for that specific case, why dwell on it and just bring yourself down and make yourself feel worse about it? So I think cleansing your newsfeed is huge. This also applies to just people who are negative in general. This doesn't even have to be about a vegan movement, but just people who are negative and constantly complaining. Like that's not going to help your overall happiness. So I say cleansing your newsfeed, even just like muting people. You don't have to like go on an unfollow spree and make people mad, but muting some of that content that's not doing any good for you is really helpful. And then, on the other side, focusing on the wins, like what's going well. Like I've been seeing these stats like left and right, which make me so happy. Like someone signing up for Veganuary every 8 seconds, or like the vegan movement's grown like 500%, or like the number of vegans in the US has grown 500, 600% in the last few years. Like those are amazing things. Like focus on those things and have those fuel you to do good things moving forward. Then another one is just taking a break. Do a kind of less strenuous or maybe less emotionally taxing form of activism. And then, of course, as Lisa mentioned, the activist support line, which I think is an amazing resource. I didn't know about that before, and that was so cool to hear about. Then finally, community is also a huge part of sticking to any goals or starting something new or trying to establish a good habit. So, if your goal is to, help release X amount of animals in a year or save however many animals from slaughter. Like, this is an amazing community. Like, you found what you wanted other animal activists. So there are other communities out there for other, find the community that helps your other goals as well. So look outside of just activist circles. I know personally sometimes I can get totally in a bubble of just vegan wellness coaches or people into vegan fitness or just fitness in general, and I kind of forget about like other things that are happening out there. That's why I was so excited to be on this webinar and talk to you guys, because I do have activist friends, but it's not something I know a ton about personally. So kind of network, see what other people are doing, and kind of get out of your bubble, and you can see how other people are promoting veganism, just how other people are taking care of themselves as vegans, whatever it might be, and find those other communities that kind of take you out of your shell or kind of bring your head up out of whatever you're focusing on with your whole heart. And then also connecting to hobbies that aren't necessarily vegan centric. So I think focusing on fitness and nutrition can help you do that. I mean, for nutrition, a lot of us are just focusing on vegan, plant-based nutrition, of course. I think especially with the fitness piece, it's like you might find a yoga studio you love, and I don't think you're not going to go just because not everyone in the class is vegan, So connecting to those other hobbies that aren't just focused on veganism can kind of bring your mind out of what you're always trying to do day to day, your main goals, and kind of help you focus on yourself as well and really get into those other hobbies. And then also I think what's huge when you're especially starting off on a new habit, and I think being a new vegan, this is a big thing too, is like avoid comparisonitis or trying to be perfect. No one's perfect. People might look perfect on the internet, but like no one is doing anything perfectly. And whatever you're doing to try and better yourself is amazing, and you should give yourself a pat on the back for it, and just constantly try to step up your game compared to yourself, and that's the best you can do, and that's amazing. Yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to talk about. So I had sent Lisa these things you can see right now, my Instagram handle, Facebook, and email. So she will make sure you guys have access to that. But that's all I had otherwise.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Alexa, for giving us all these tips. I think that's so helpful as activists. I mean, it's true, we need to kind of branch out and bring other aspects into our lives. Like
Everyone does, yeah.
Yeah. I actually really like dancing. So that was something that I thought, oh, here's a way for me to get in some fitness, doing something I really enjoy, because I probably won't end up in the gym. It's hard for me to do that for some reason, but dancing I enjoy, and I can go to dance classes. And so I think it is really helpful to find things that are fun, so that there's that impetus to actually do these things.
Yes.
I love your salad, garbage salad. Oh, I'm going to have to try that. That's such a good idea.
Isn't that fun? And then you don't have to have like a recipe. You can just like throw a bunch of stuff together.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So what we're going to do now is invite questions from anyone who's listening, whether you are in the webinar with us directly or if you're listening on Facebook. We are filming this live streaming on our vegan spirituality page, and it's also posted in different pages. So if you have a question, go ahead and let us know. You can do that in a few ways. So if you're in the webinar with us, you can type it right into the chat box. If you are okay or comfortable with sharing your webcam, you can go ahead and turn on your video just by clicking the video icon. And you can do the same thing if you just want to turn on your audio. Then you can speak just through your audio. Or if you're on the phone, you can press *4, and that will allow you to open up the conversation on the phone. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us. This is really great to have people who want to have improved health, but also just to help us so that we can continue our mission for the animals. So I'm noticing on the chat box, I don't see a lot of, here's a question. Oh, this sounds like actually a question for me. What was the 800 number that I gave at the beginning of the webinar? So this is our support line that's just dedicated to animal activists, to vegans, to new vegans who need support. It's put together through In Defense of Animals, and it is 800-705-0425, and we've been running this line for a couple years, and we have counselors who are vegan who answer the calls and can provide support and resources. So please call us. That's what we're here for. And I'll go ahead and type that in into a little chat box here. And if anyone has any questions, maybe on our live feed, I'm just going to briefly check that to see. Anybody there has a question? Oh, we have Elisa, who's joined us through the Vegan Spirituality page. She says, thanks for your wisdom. She loves calling it a rainbow salad. And although she does say there's nothing about organic vegan food that's garbage. I think she's joking, little joking there. Yeah. So if another question I wanted to just check in with Alexa, if you have any like common concerns or questions that some of your clients bring up, this might be a good time to mention
Yeah,
what those could
well,
be.
that's a great point. So I do have, I think, actually, like it might be 50-50 right now, the people I work with that are vegan versus maybe new vegans or kind of on the spectrum of like want to go vegan.
Mhm.
So for the newer ones, and I mean, even people who are trying to up level their fitness, I think this is a concern too, is just like, am I getting enough protein? And I think when you go
Mhm.
vegan, you hear that from other humans in general. Um, and that's just where I think that focus on like the most vibrant foods that you can find and getting the biggest variety as well. I don't think I hit on that enough, but those salads I kind of throw together, like my main goal is to get as many different foods in there as possible. If you're really getting the biggest variety of foods that you can and mostly whole plant foods, like that will not be a concern. So that, that's not something to really worry about. But then just focusing on as many like whole foods as possible. And if you really do feel like you need some sort of supplement or other kind of like combined, because I know a lot of people have an issue like, oh, I'm really busy, I can't always have those fresh foods, or I don't have the time to throw something together like that. That's where, never feel guilty having kind of like what some people think is a shortcut. There are so many great companies out there, and I can throw this in the comments of the video later or something, of companies that make protein powders or superfood mixes or different bars and things that will definitely get you there, no problem. I'm trying to think. That's on the nutrition piece. I think that's really the biggest one. And then for fitness, I think some people are just like, I'm so out of shape. Like, how do I even start? Or, they feel intimidated at the gym. And I think the tips that we spoke about pretty quickly, but anything where it's just like, like you're saying, I'm probably not going to go to a gym, but I really love dancing. Like, be real about what you actually will accomplish. Don't be comparing yourself to some huge bodybuilder. Like, you're not going to be throwing around hundreds of pounds of weight at the gym. So don't think of that as your main goal. Just start where you're at. Anything that's more than what you were doing yesterday is an improvement. So that's awesome. So just find what you really love, find where you want to be, experiment with things. Just like when you come across a new vegan who had questions that maybe you think are like, wow, it's really elementary. You were there at one point. It's the same with fitness. Anyone you run into at a gym or in a studio or anything had to start somewhere too from the beginning, so they get it. So never feel intimidated by being new at something, especially with fitness.
Yeah, I know. I actually live in a place with lots of mountains, and I see people biking up them all the time, and I think, wow, I would pass out if I tried to do that. But, and then it's very interesting to see the different levels. And some of my good friends who are vegan, they ride up those hills. So it's really impressive.
Oh
And
my
I
gosh.
guess trying to figure out how do you get from point A to point B where you're intimidated to like riding your bike up those mountains.
Yeah, I know. And that's where I think finding a community, first of all, that understands you is so key. And that can take a while. It's like, think of the few things that you're really interested in and see if there's a combination of a couple of those things in one community. And that makes it a lot easier to kind of go towards the same goals. And if you can find even someone who's a couple steps ahead of you to kind of lead the way versus
Mm.
finding, maybe you go to a personal trainer who's like super jacked, like you can't really relate to that because you're like, yeah, how would I get from me to that? So even finding someone who's just a few steps ahead of you to kind of help guide the way and be like, oh, just went through that. This is kind of how I did that. That's what I think is so great about social media too, is you can find people who maybe aren't professionals at, a professional personal trainer, but some girl who maybe lost 40 pounds and that's what you're trying to do and just accomplish that, you can just reach out and ask, like, how did you do that? You look great. Like, don't be afraid to do those things either.
Mm. That is helpful. That's helpful. And then we do have a question here. So, how do you handle with a few people when there's this hostility towards the vegan concept? Sometimes it's really subtle, but Marilyn, who's making this comment, says she runs into that. And if so, how do you deal with that? She's asking, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, and I think now that I don't work in a corporate setting, and I think you find this in any setting, but especially now that I do the majority of my work through kind of social media channels, you can see this even more because a lot of people are hidden behind a screen and can be kind of hostile towards a certain thing that they might
Hmm.
see and aren't afraid to say something. Um, Anything that someone says to you that seems hostile or negative is really just a reflection of them. Like, I think that's been my biggest mindset shift over the last couple of years is like, nothing's, whether you take this a good way or bad way, nothing's actually about you when it comes to other people. So if someone acts kind of hostile to maybe you even just ordering something vegan at a restaurant, that's probably a reflection of them feeling uncomfortable about how they're living their lives. So I think that just taking that with a grain of salt and giving love back to anyone who sends maybe some negative things your way, that's going to be the best way to deal with it. Try and put yourself in their shoes and really think about, like, why might they be saying something like that? Like, what's in their hearts that would be causing them to say that? Because it's not like, oh, what did I do? But it's like, what's in their own like mind and their own hearts that would cause them to say that? And it's probably, a feeling of being uncomfortable or self-conscious or something like that. So all you can really do is respond with love, and that's the best way to usually go about that.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing that because I think that is a helpful tool to say, hey, maybe they're projecting their own insecurities about what they're eating or how they're living their lives, and to see beyond that really with some compassion. That's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think some people feel kind of challenged, even if you're not like, oh, why are you eating? You might not be directly challenging them, but just seeing different lifestyles can be uncomfortable for some people
Hmm.
if they're not used to it. So just know that it's most likely from a place of fear for themselves.
Hmm. I've actually had lunch with a friend who is a dear old friend who wasn't vegan, but when we got our food and we sat there and we're just talking about other things, she just started crying and crying and crying. She cried through the whole meal pretty much, and I didn't say anything. And then she mentioned that she really, wanted to be vegan or tried to do that and struggled with it. And so it's
Oh, yeah.
fascinating. Sometimes you don't really have to do anything at all, just being yourself and without saying a word, a lot of emotions can come up. So,
Oh,
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
I actually ran back to do this webinar from my boyfriend's dad's birthday party, and there was like his whole family, his friends, none of them are vegan. So like I've been an anomaly coming into this environment. But, over the last 2 years of knowing them, it's like at first they didn't know what it was. And then I just brought my own food to things. And then to this year, like at Christmas, they were like bringing vegan dishes and trying new things. So it's like, think about how much time it can take for people to kind of be like, oh, like that's not scary. I could try that. Like I won't die if I try it. Or, she's not judging me. So like, why would I judge her back? Or like, why wouldn't I try something new?
Hmm. Wow, that is quite a transformation. That's so cool.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Um, let's see. I was just looking to see if anyone else had a question who is on board with us, either on the webinar, like I mentioned on the phone, you can press *4, or if you're with us, you can show your webcam. That's always a fun thing when people feel courageous to do that. And if they have any questions they want to ask, I'm going to quickly check over with our Facebook. Oh, how about if you have any? So we have one comment that says on the live Facebook feed here, thank you for all these ideas to avoid burnout and for activists. And another one is, do you have any book recommendations for new vegans?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I probably do. I'm trying to think. There are so many amazing books out there, and I haven't. Oh, you know what? Oh my God, I have one right here. Figures. This is yes. I have three books on my nightstand. I haven't picked this up in a while, but of course it's like a good one. I don't know if it's backwards or not, but it's called
It's
Beyond
great.
Belief. Okay, good. It's called Beyond Beliefs, a guide to improving relationships and communication for vegans, vegetarians, and meat eaters. And it is pretty hefty, I'm going to say. It's not like a quick read, but this one at least not so much for like, what do I eat instead of, these meats or cheeses or things like that. But if you're talking about the social aspect of veganism and going vegan and interacting with non-vegans, this book is amazing. So I would highly recommend that.
And I'll just
My,
put one little uh, comment here about that book. So Dr. Melanie Joy, who wrote that book, she actually did a webinar with us last year. And anyone who's joining in, if you go to it's the Sustainable Activism webinar playlist on YouTube, you can watch her webinar that she did all about that book too.
yay, I'm going to have to go watch that because this book is great. Um, Yeah, so that's the kind of the social aspect. Some of my favorite, I'm trying to think, my favorite cookbooks, I think just to read even, I really like Thug Kitchen. If you're kind of into profanity and just like ridiculousness, I really love all of their cookbooks. Um, and then I might have to answer that comment. I'll have to remember some of the books I read maybe a couple years ago when I first went vegan that really helped me, but that's what I have off the top of my head at least.
Yeah, yeah, those are awesome, awesome. I like The World Peace Diet by Dr. Will Tuttle. That's also not light reading, but it is very deep and profound and really covers so many different aspects of going vegan. That's a lovely one too. So yeah, and if anybody's with us on the webinar, if you have a book that you like, or if you're with us online, please just type in any books that you like. That's great too, just to share with one another.
Yeah, it's great how many there are.
Yeah, that's one thing. There's tons and tons of vegan cookbooks I've noticed. I have a bunch on my shelf, and then there's always new ones coming out. So that's great. Yeah. So let's see if anyone else has a question or two, and maybe anything you might want to share. Any other things, Alexa? Before I think we're coming towards the close of our time together. So just checking in. Also, if anybody had a question, was feeling shy, would be a good time to ask.
Yeah, now or never.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about the fitness thing. I know that you mentioned mindfulness and how important that is, and I love your idea of meditating 2 to 3 minutes a day because that's another thing that can be really intimidating to sit there for like hours and to have this idea that it's okay just to monitor your own breath, just to, look outside and out the window for 2 to 3 minutes and really have a moment to listen to yourself. I really like that suggestion. And what about these high intensity workouts that you mentioned? Are there certain things that you advise for people who have 20 minutes or 10 minutes or a half an hour? What-
Yeah, I mean, the things that I offer through my coaching is kind of like a whole platform of workouts. So there is a lot of variety. I personally relate most to those who are into high intensity, which also can translate to low workout time, which is why I like it. Because the most you can fit into, it's like if you're going to do a 20-25 minute workout, you're going to be doing like really high intensity work to get the same as if you ran for hours or something like that. So for me personally, like getting my heart rate really high really quickly and kind of like pushing as hard as I can for 20-30 minutes kind of gives me what I hate running personally. Just like as a side note, what I assume is similar to a runner's high. I wouldn't know. Um, So yeah, I mean, that's again, it gets back to like what's really great for you. Some people are like yoga all day, every day, and you can get really good results from doing that and eating a balanced diet. Anything you do that just gets you moving more than you were before is fantastic. And then, I think as you just dive into those new habits and discover different exercises, different ways of working out, and just moving more, you will feel more inclined to search out different ways to do that same thing and find a fun way to do it. And I mean, just keep in mind, like, if you're thinking physique wise or like weight loss, muscle gain, anything like that, 80% of your results are going to come from nutrition anyway. So sometimes people even just focus as much as they can on the nutrition, and exercise is like a bonus as long as you're moving around enough each day. So I would just make that note of like fitness workouts aren't going to be the end all be all. It's really what you put into your body, and then the way you use it is how you kind of enhance everything even more.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's super encouraging. And I know that you offer these suggestions and tips and like specifics for people. So if anyone is curious and wants to have a suggestion for a personalized suggestion for a high intensity workout, you can reach out to Alexa on some of the, we put it into the webinar, some of her social media tags and handles, and then also we put them on the live feed too. So this is an opportunity to say, hey, I know this person, she's vegan, and it might be helpful to get some specific tips. I'll probably give Alexa a call. We were chatting a little bit about that too. And so I think that helps when you know that you're only going to be doing a high intensity workout for 10 minutes. That's kind of a nice way to start, I think, because
Yeah, you're like, this
yeah,
might suck. I'm gonna feel amazing afterwards, and it's only gonna take this much time. It's not that bad.
yeah, I think that's great. So thank you so much for
Right.
sharing all your insights with us and giving some great tips for activists. And I think this will all do a huge service to all of us for this coming year. And the reason we have this happening right now is because many of us at the end of the year do a lot of self-reflecting and then decide here's what we want to do differently in the coming year. So this is the time. This is the perfect time to say, hey, I want to thrive as an activist, and here's some ways I can do that. So thanks to everyone for tuning in, and to Alexa for being with us today. And if you need any more tips or have more questions, you can definitely reach her. And do you want to just say your maybe favorite contact info?
Yeah, I am most active on Instagram. So I think Lisa has it written down, but it's Veghead Redhead for obvious reasons. So that would be probably the best way to find me. And that's where you'll find the most content on what I'm up to also.
Yeah, you might get some more details about those workouts. So, oh, awesome. Well, I hope everyone here has a wonderful new year, and that this will be part of your new year is paying attention to your body, mind, and spirit so that we can all be out there and be the voice for the animals this year. So we'll make it a good 2019 by starting out with this great advice here. And let's see, one last little chat that I see somebody had here. Oh, it was a thank you. It was a thank you chat. So, oh, well, thanks to everybody for joining us. It's always such a treat to gather together, and feel free to reach out. We do these each month, and each month we have a different speaker. And like we had Melanie Joy, now we have Alexa. And so please tune in. They're free. They're here for you, and hopefully they'll give you some new ideas to bring more joy, more fitness, and more just robust life to your everyday experience. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you hopefully soon.
All
Goodbye.
right.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for joining us.